The Ford Explorer may not be the largest three-row crossover in America, but it is surprisingly practical because we get more cargo space in the rear than you find in something like a Nissan Pathfinder, but we also get more rear passenger legroom, especially, than we find in something like a Chevy Traverse or a GMC Acadia. The Explorer also recently received a number of changes under the hood, on the inside, and on the outside in order to help keep this model fresh. We're taking a look at the top-end Platinum trim with the optional twin-turbo V6 under the hood. In my opinion, the front-end styling is now sort of Ford meets Land Rover, which is somewhat logical because Ford used to own Land Rover. We have new full LED low-beam headlamps. The high beams are still halogens, and all models get these new headlamps. Our particular model also has fog lamps lower in this front bumper. Those are halogen beams as well. I think from this angle especially, you can see the resemblance between this and the Range Rover Sport especially. We also have a camera right up here under this portion of the grille. At 198.3 inches long, this slots almost exactly between the Highlander, which is 7 inches smaller than this, and the Chevy Traverse, which is 5 inches longer than this. The general design of the Explorer, however, makes this look perhaps a little bit smaller than something like a Nissan Pathfinder, which is actually an inch shorter than the Ford that we're taking a look at. It might be this section of the rear end right here to my eye, because we get a slightly smaller third row window right back here, a larger pillar between the second row area and that third row passenger area, and the cargo compartment in the back. The Ford Explorer is a front-wheel drive vehicle by default, so we see a very front-wheel drive proportion with a fairly short hood up front. It's different than what we see in the Dodge Durango. The Durango and the Yukon and Tahoe, etc., they get longer hoods. They're slightly bulkier up front because they are designed to have a V8 long ways in the vehicle. It's obvious by the rear end design that the Explorer is a three-row crossover because the rear tailgate is relatively vertical when you compare this to something like a Ford Edge, which is a large two-row crossover. We get LED tail lamps in the back. Ours, of course, is the Platinum model, as I said earlier, so Platinum is right there on the tailgate, and we get integrated exhaust tips in the top-end models. All models have twin exhaust tips. Top-end ones, it's integrated into the bumper. Behind a cover in the rear bumper, we find the optional 2-inch tow receiver, 7-pin and 4-pin wiring harnesses. Towing capacity comes in at either 2,000 pounds for the 4-cylinder model or 5,000 pounds for the V6s. Under the hood, things are very different than the competition. This does not start out with a 4-cylinder engine like we see in the Toyota Highlander, and we don't get a V8 engine like we see in the Dodge Durango. Instead, things start with a 3.5-liter V6 engine. It produces 290 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. That's very similar to the optional engine that we see in the Highlander, the standard engine that we see in a variety of the competition. From there, you can option up into a 2.3-liter turbocharged engine, which is similar to what we see in the brand new Mazda CX-9. This 2.3-liter turbo, however, produces more power at 280 horsepower, about the same kind of torque at 310. From there, we get the only twin-turbo V6 in this segment. It's a 3.5-liter twin-turbo unit, and it produces 365 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. Depending on the engine that you choose and whether you choose front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, your fuel economy will come in between 18 and 22 miles per gallon. That 22 miles per gallon combined may sound a little bit low, but remember that all three of these engines are still using a 6-speed automatic transmission. We don't find an 8-speed like we do find in some of the competition. When it comes to front seat comfort, I'm going to give this 9 out of 10 points. Our top end trim gets a 3-position seat memory that's also linked to the power adjustable pedals and the 4-way tilt telescopic power steering column. We have a 4-way adjustable lumbar support and a multi-way adjustable driver's seat with a 4-way adjustable headrest. As we recently have seen in the Ford F-Series pickup trucks and the Lincoln MKX, these seats also contain a massage function. There are air bladders in the seat bottom cushion and in the seat back cushion that help to reduce fatigue and help improve circulation on long road journeys. That really improves the front seat comfort. On the downside, however, the seat bottom cushion is a little bit short for my tastes. Taller drivers especially may find that they lack thigh support because of the length of this seat bottom cushion. Shorter drivers, however, should be just fine. Although the Explorer is not the largest entry in this segment, combined legroom is very generous, and that would be front row plus second row plus third row. Sitting right here in the middle seat with the front seat adjusted for me very comfortably at 6 feet tall, I still have about 4 inches of legroom left. The second row seat can also be slid forward and backward to help apportion the space a little bit more equitably. Unlike some of the competition, the Explorer is only available in 6 or 7 passenger versions. There's no 8 passenger version because the third row is always a 2-person bench. The model that we're taking a look at is the 6 passenger version, so there's no middle seat right here. If I move on over to the right side of the vehicle, you'll notice this front seat was very comfortably adjusted for a 6'5" person. He actually ended up sitting a little bit closer to the dashboard than I was, so I have more legroom over here on this side. We have a center console that opens up with a padded armrest and a very deep storage well instead of a middle seat. Getting into the third row is fairly easy. We simply fold the second row forward, and then we pull this little fabric webbing right here, tumble the seat forward to help you get into the third row. You can also do this electrically. We just press this button right here on the side. The seat will tumble forward right like that. Although I have yet to find any third row seat that's overtly comfortable outside a conversion van, this is one of the most comfortable third rows available in the United States. This second row seat is slid all the way back in its tracks, suitable for a 6'5" passenger in this third row. That front seat, again, had a 6'5" passenger in it, same person I had sitting both ways. And back here, my knee is brushing the back of this seat, but it's not touching it. That means that this is an awful lot more comfortable for me at 6 feet tall. If I lean back, my head barely touches the ceiling, but it's not really digging in. If you slouched a little bit, you would definitely be okay back here. Again, this is not a 3-row bench in the third row. This is just a 2-person. It's one right over here, and then one over here on this other side. The Explorer that Ford sent us is the 6-passenger model. There's no center seat right here in the second row, and therefore we won't have our traditional child seat review of this vehicle because I was not able to actually fully test the Explorer. However, I will say that for rearward-facing child seats, the Explorer is very accommodating. We again have some of the largest combined legroom figures that you see in any 3-row vehicle in the United States. That's front row plus second row plus third row, and that does affect the child seat score when it comes to especially putting rear-facing seats in the back here. This seat's not actually latched in place. If it was, it would actually move about an inch further rearward, definitely enough clearance between the front seat and the child seat. If multiple child seats are a big part of your family life, you should know that getting into the third row with 2 child seats in the second row is a little bit tricky in the Explorer. In something like a Nissan Pathfinder, you could leave the child seat latched into place, that would be using the latch anchors only, and fold the seat forward, still have access to the third row fairly easily. You can't do that in the Explorer. Although the Explorer is not as long as something like a Chevy Traverse, the cargo area is actually a little bit more practical. This has quite a minivan-like cargo area. You can see that it extends about 8 to 10 inches below this load-in height right here. As you can see, you can lay a 22-inch roller bag in this position completely inside that cargo well, or you can stand them up right like this, and you could put about 4 or 5 of them right across the back behind the third row seats. When it comes to our new luggage test with our hard-sided 24-inch roller bags, these are a little bit too large to carry on most domestic flights. I was only able to fit 3 across the back. However, that's still significantly more than you'll find in any other 3-row crossover behind the third row. At this point, you may be thinking to yourself, that's lovely, but obviously the Explorer doesn't have a spare tire. You would actually be wrong, because there is a compact spare tire under the cargo area load floor, even though this cargo area load floor is so low. When it comes to our new luggage score, we came in at 3/9. We were able to fit 3 bags behind the third row, and we were able to fit 9 in this upright position behind the second row quite safely. In this position, none of these suitcases will roll or fly forward in the event of an accident, and we can quite easily close the hatchback. Since we're in the top-end Platinum trim, we have Platinum embroidered on the seats right there. These seats are ventilated as well as heated, and it also features a variety of different stitching patterns right there on the seat surface, the bottom, and the seat back. The door panels in our Platinum model feature a large portion of stitched materials. We have stitched leather on the top, and then we have quilted leather in this section right here above the armrest, aluminum trim and wood trim combining right there on the door panel. The stitch materials continue all the way over to the dashboard. We see a stitch line right there and a seam right down here. More wood trim right over here, and a large glove compartment that has a 2-tiered arrangement, a bin style and a slot right there as well. One nice touch is that the stitched material goes right down here to where your knees would bang on the center console. In the center of the dashboard, we find 2 large air vents and the touchscreen infotainment system. Our model still has the old MyFord Touch system, however, Sync 3 should be available in models that you'll see on the dealership lot. You'll notice that this screen right here is where you adjust the 3-position lumbar support and the massaging option for the seat. We just hit this button right here. We choose off, high, or low for the driver and front passenger seat. Below the screen, we find the buttons for the camera system, self-parking, parking sensors right here, button to shortcut us to the sound options, and an eject button for the single-slot optical disc player. Continuing down from that, we have a traditional console shifter. Sport mode is all the way down towards the bottom. Drive is 1 step up from there. If you want manual mode, that's available via shift paddles on the steering wheel. We have a storage cubby right under this little door, and that's where you'll find a single USB input, the SD card for the mapping database, and a 12-volt power outlet. More than enough room in here to store something like an iPhone 6, and we get a little cutout right there, so that way your cable can come out of right there rather than being pinched on that little door. Between the front seats, we find two very large cup holders and the terrain management dial. This is very similar to what we see in some of the other luxury SUVs out there. Between the front seats, we find a softly padded center armrest. It opens to reveal a little slot right here that can be removed for pens, pencils, change, that sort of thing. It's a deep well, can easily put a wide variety of things inside. And we have an additional USB port behind that little door. On the driver's side, our model has a partial LCD instrument cluster. This is similar to what we see in certain Lincoln models. We have a tachometer over here on the left. These numbers on this ring, they're actually physical as well as those lines. However, on the inside, we have an LCD that stretches right from here, and that little indicator right there, the little needle itself, is actually digital as well, and that stretches all the way over here to that ring on the speedometer on the right side. The inside of the speedometer is another LCD. This is actually a circular LCD, and that gives us this digital fuel gauge, as well as the screen in the middle and the dial. Because we're in the Platinum trim, we get a partial wood steering wheel, and this wood portion is also heated. That's something that we don't see even in certain luxury vehicles, where just the leather portions of the steering wheel are heated. This is a almost 3-spoke design with a cutout right here in the bottom spoke. Acceleration in this twin-turbo V6 model is very good for this segment. We ran from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, which makes this just about 3 to 4/10 of a second slower than the Dodge Durango. The Dodge Durango does have a slightly more powerful V8 engine in it, and it also has an 8-speed automatic transmission. And I think the transmission really is the differentiator between this and something like the Durango. We've not had the opportunity to test the 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in the Explorer. However, the base V6 engine is very comparable to the optional V6 that we see in something like a Toyota Highlander when it comes to 0 to 60 performance. Braking distances were exceptional in the Explorer. We went from 60 to 0 in 112 feet, which is incredibly short. The tire selection on our Platinum model has a big impact on the braking scores, obviously, but also the brake design and the suspension design play here as well. Thanks to the tires and the suspension design, I'm also going to give handling an A. The grip is excellent in this vehicle for a 3-row crossover. This definitely road holds better than something like a Chevy Traverse, a GMC Acadia, a Toyota Highlander, Honda Pilot, etc. When it comes to handling feel, however, the Explorer does lag behind the Dodge Durango, which is the best in this segment in my opinion, and the brand new Mazda CX-9. The CX-9 gives us definitely more road feel. The steering is a little bit more accurate than we see in this Explorer, but the actual handling ability is fairly similar to what we see in that Mazda CX-9. The handling ability is helped out by a moderately firm suspension. I'm going to give this overall a B when it comes to the ride as a result. Our Platinum tester also has 20-inch wheels and tires on it, and that does reduce the amount of cushion that you get out of the tires themselves. Out on a long highway journey, you can definitely feel the expansion joints more in this Platinum model than you can in the lower end trims. When it comes to our cabin noise score, this vehicle scored an A. We came in at 71 decibels at 50 miles an hour, which puts us among the quieter entries in this segment. Fuel economy is really the one area where the Explorer lags the competition. The combined EPA rating ranges from 18 to 22 depending on the engine and the drivetrain that you get, whether you're getting front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The model that we've been driving here has been averaging about 16 miles per gallon, however. This is the all-wheel drive twin-turbo model. That is definitely a little bit below what the EPA says you're going to get. I've mentioned fuel economy with other turbocharged vehicles before. Certain turbocharged engine designs have troubles meeting EPA fuel economy averages in real-world driving. Part of the reason for that is just the way that people drive. Obviously, there's far more power on tap from this engine than you would find in your average 3.5-liter V6. The other thing that happens with some modern turbocharged engine designs is that they end up injecting extra fuel into the cylinder to help cool the cylinder itself down. I realize it sounds a little bit odd to inject something flammable into a cylinder to try and cool it down, but the reason is that they're injecting more fuel than can actually burn inside the cylinder, and that does have a net cooling effect. Whether or not the engine computer ends up injecting more fuel into the cylinder depends on a wide variety of different factors, and some engine designs seem to do this a little bit more often than others. That does play into some of the fuel economy difference, especially if it's hot outside or the vehicle is being driven hard or you're towing, something along those lines. Before we dive right into the pricing section, I should tell you that the pricing that we'll be talking about is all 2017 pricing. There really haven't been very many changes between 2016 and 2017. The biggest thing, of course, is, as I said earlier, you'll find the all-new Sync 3 infotainment system in the 2017 model. You didn't find that in the 2016 model year vehicle. Now let's dive into the details. The Explorer comes in 6 different forms at the moment in the United States. We have the base model starting at $31,160, and that gets the V6 engine standard. We then get the XLT trim, which I consider to be the true base version of the Explorer because it gives you features that I suspect most shoppers will be looking for, and that includes the LED headlamps, parking sensors, and the keyless entry and go. Jumping up to the $41,225 limited trim, you exchange the V6 engine for a standard 2.3-liter turbocharged engine. Again, that sounds somewhat similar to what we see in the Mazda CX-9 that's all new this year. However, the Ford engine produces considerably more power. We also get things like the heated steering wheel, power liftgate, leather seats, etc. When you jump up to the 3.5-liter twin-turbo engine, all-wheel drive becomes standard, and that's on both the Sport and the Platinum versions. The Sport gets 20-inch wheels and the Class 3 tow package, also standard. The Platinum gives us things like active park, the double moonroof, adaptive cruise control, the blind spot warning system, lane departure warning, etc. Personally, I think the best value in the Explorer is in the limited trim. We get that 2.3-liter four-cylinder engine. We also get leather upholstery, a lot of the other niceties that people are expecting in a nicely loaded three-row crossover these days. If I had to choose between the Sport and the Platinum, I would actually choose the Platinum trim. The main reason for that is that the Sport is not any faster, but the Platinum is nicer on the inside. We also get those features like the active parking system, the double pane moonroof. We get the multi-contour seats, which are quite simply the most comfortable seats you can get in this particular segment. The anti-fatigue function really makes those more comfortable for long car trips. They're going to be considerably more comfortable with that massaging function than some of the other seats in this segment if you're taking the car out on a 3 or 4 or 5 hour drive. Now let's talk about how the Explorer compares with the competition. The key thing here to remember is that the Explorer is one of the larger vehicles on the inside in this segment.